We are learning Mishnah Sotah, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishna Test, Mishna 9. So the Mishnah before was showing us examples of punishment, midah keneged midah, punishment measure for measure, according to how the person behaved or according to how the person sinned. Similarly, the person was punished. V'chein le'inyan tova, and the same thing is true. The same thing applies for the good. That means reward also is applied in the same way, according to the act that was done. That's how the person is rewarded. However, we're going to see that when it comes to reward, it's even more. Meaning, midah tov merubal midas paranias. The attribute of good, of reward, is greater than that of punishment. So not only is it going to be similar to the act, but it's going to actually be, it's going to be more. It's going to be a lot more than the act itself, as we'll see. Same thing applies for the good, for reward. Miriam waited for Moshe shah achas. So we're translated as 1 hour. What does that mean? Shenemar, as it says, and his sister stood from afar to watch and see what would happen to him, right? When Moshe was put into the water, she stood from afar and she waited. And it says she waited for 1 hour. I don't know if we know exactly how much it was, but, for a certain amount of time. It wasn't necessarily a very long amount of time. Lefikach nitzakvu Yisrael shiva yamim b'midbar. And therefore the Jewish people waited for her 7 days in the desert when she was stricken with tsaras. Shenemar, as it states, Miriam, the nation did not travel until Miriam was able to re-enter the camp. Now, she waited for a sha'achas, right? So she waited, measure for measure. What was the reward? They waited. But they waited for a whole week. She didn't wait for a week. She waited for a shah. So it would have made sense that they should wait for her, but wait somehow more corresponding to one period of time. And it comes out they waited for 7 days. So you see that when it comes to the midah, to when Hashem rewards, there Hashem does it in a much greater amount, greater level than the punishment. Okay, now Yosef zacha likbar es aviv. Yosef merited to marry his father, ve'ein be'echav gadol mimenu, and there was none of his brothers that was greater than him. He was the viceroy of Egypt, and he's the one who took care of Yaakov being buried. Shenemar, as it says, Vayal Yosef likbar es aviv. Yosef went up to bury his father. Vayal imoy gam rechav gaparashim, and also it went up with him chariots and horsemen. So Yosef himself was the one leading the burial, dealing with the burial arrangements. You see, he has his whole entourage because of who he is as the viceroy, and he's the one, though, that took care of the burial of his father. Mi leno gadol mi Yosef. So who do we find greater in honor than Yosef? Meaning, again, Yosef is going to be rewarded in kind, but he's going to be even rewarded on a greater level. Mi leno gadol mi Yosef. Who is treated with greater honor than Yosef? Shonis asik by Moshe, because who attended to his burial needs? Moshe. So you see there. So again, that because midah keneged midah, because he dealt with the burial of his father, Moshe dealt with the burial of him. And the point is also that Yosef was greater than his other brothers, and still he went ahead and he was involved in the burial of his father. He took care of it, and corresponding to that, you have Yosef being buried by none other than Moshe Rabbeinu for that. So there you have again the measure for measure, and the great level of reward that came about for it. Next, Moshe zachabatzmas Yosef. Yosef merited to carry the bones of Yosef out of Egypt. Ve'em Yisrael gadol mimenu, although there was none in Israel greater than him. Shenemar, as it says, Vayikach Moshe atzmas Yosef imay. Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him. He was the one involved. He was the one taking care of it. Even though he was greater than everybody else, it would have in some ways made sense for other people to do it instead of him, but rather he himself made sure to do it. And therefore, mi gadol mi Moshe, who is greater than Moshe, meaning who has received a greater honor than Moshe in the way that he was rewarded in kind for what he did, for this asik by Ela Hamokim, that who was involved in his burial? The Rebbeinu Shalom. Shenema vayikbar oisai by Guy. he buried him in the valley. Who buried him? Who buried Moshe? The Rebbeinu Shalom. So what we have here again, Moshe was the one that, although he was the greatest of the nation, he was involved in dealing with the carrying out of the bones of Yosef, giving Yosef his final respects to be taken out of Mitzrayim. And the reward for him was that none other than the Rebbeinu Shalom himself was the one who was involved in taking care of his burial. Now, the Mishnah concludes, V'lo al Moshe bavad amru. This was not only said regarding Moshe that Hashem is involved in the burial, al kol hatzadikim, but rather this is said regarding all the righteous people. Shenema, as it states, V'halach lefanecha sidkacha, your righteousness shall go before you, Kavod Hashem yasfecha, and the glory of Hashem will gather you in. So you see there, from the words of the Navi, that it says Hashem gathers you in. That means those who are righteous, Hashem is going to gather them in. That means Hashem is involved in their coming through a final resting. But as I explained here on the bottom from Taisus Yontif, so again, all right. So is there a difference between Moshe and everybody else? You know, we made a focus on Moshe Rabbeinu, and then we're saying at the end it applies to all tzaddikim also. So what's the difference? The explanation on the bottom is, in the case of Moshe, God attended to both his body and soul. In the case of other righteous people, God gathers in the soul while people bury the body. So there is the involvement of Hashem in the death of the righteous, again bringing their soul to its place. But in Moshe Rabbeinu's case, Rebbeinu Shalom was even involved in the physical burial of his body. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.